At Subway, start your day the flavorful way by adding new guacamole to your favorite breakfast sandwich. Perfectly made with a hint of jalapeno, our guacamole turns up the flavor to your breakfast. Try it today on a hot and toasty egg, white, and cheese. Subway, eat fresh. This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, taping this on a Thursday. We have a Hall of Famer, NBA legend, and the starfish that saved Pittsburgh, Julius Erving. In studio, how are you?
I'm good, Bill. How are you?
You're right. You wrote a book. You've been promoting the book. It's called Dr. J, The Autobiography.
Right.
Very candid book. I was actually surprised because you, for the most part, have been a pretty private athlete and celebrity for most of your career. What made you decide to say, you know what, I'm telling my story?
Well, I think this is a project that started and stopped multiple times since age 40. Mm-hmm. And finally at age 60, it was like, I'm not that concerned about my life being an open book.
Yeah.
I think for my family and for the generations of my mom's family, my dad's family, it's important that they hear from me first person about our story and my legacy, as opposed to, a lot of erroneous reports that
right.
somehow, creep into the public, other people's takes on situations that were part of my sports experience as well as my non-sports experience. So just to get out there first person and with Carl Tara Greenfeld as a ghostwriter, he worked to flush some things out that I might not have sat down and put pen to pad on.
Right.
For the sake of integrity and real transparency. So I think it's the age that we live in. I think in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, there was a lot more privacy. But with social media now and the way that life is, you have to be transparent. I mean, you have to just tell it like it is.
When you say erroneous or things like get shaped in a certain way that you felt like was maybe unfair or something, give me an example of that.
Well, I think on the sports side, clearly, when the first 5 years of my pro basketball career are like thrown to the wayside like they never happened.
Right.
That's definitely erroneous. And, when I see a report on ESPN or Fox or anybody, and, they start talking about the greatest players and Julius Erving and George Gervin and Rick Barry and, people who had the ABA experience and who excelled in the ABA and excelled in the NBA don't get included in the people who only played in the NBA.
Right.
So it's very self-serving in terms of sometimes how statistics are reported. And, I would match my career stats and team accomplishments and individual accomplishments against anybody's. But you can't throw 5 years away and expect the playing field to be level because of that,
Part of the problem, the ABA games were never on. I remember, I was 7 years old when the leagues merged, right, in 76. Mm-hmm. You and Cowens were on the cover. I'm from Boston. Mm-hmm. My dad had Celtics tickets from 74 on. Mm-hmm. So Cowens is on the cover. That's my dude. I'm excited. You're on this cover. I don't know anything about you other than there's this guy out there. I've seen your basketball cards. Like I had a couple of the Nets basketball cards. Mm-hmm. I think like one game might have been on TV. What would have been on TV? Like one of the finals games?
Well, I think the games were on regionally. They just might not have been nationally telecast. And the NBA was pretty much in the same boat.
Right.
There's still a lot of players who we talk about who played in the NBA who maybe were never seen on TV because, they only pick select teams. They picked
it was
Lakers,
like 5 games a year.
Lakers, Celtics, Philadelphia, Baltimore Bullets, Boston Celtics. When I watched TV growing up in the 50s and 60s, I always saw the same teams. I never saw the remote teams.
It was Wilt versus
play on
Russell.
TV unless they made the playoffs.
Right.
So I don't think the lack of exposure is an excuse. I think it's just,
well, it didn't.
It's just self-serving. I mean, the certain things get used, and I've had this conversation with David Stern multiple times over the years, because I always thought that a part of, his legacy before it ends in February was to, effectively merge the statistics for the two basketball leagues that came together as a merger, like they did with football and
AFL
baseball.
and NFL. Yeah.
And there's never that issue with hockey, but it does change things. I mean, if you look at the line items, it does change things, and it changes people's place in our sports history.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm already in the Hall of Fame, so I don't think there's anything that could be done that could improve my position. But I'm thinking of a lot of other guys who didn't cross over. James Silas, for example, who didn't cross over,
blew out his knee his first NBA year,
and didn't play in the NBA. And Artis Gilmore has gotten his due. Iceman has gotten his due. But there are dozens of other guys. Mel Daniels, who just went in the Hall of Fame. Roger Brown. A lot of great players who should be a part of basketball history. Period. Who get disrespected by an NBA only sign on the door.
I remember when the leagues merged, and that SI cover came out, and just not even knowing what to expect, because there's no Sports Center back then.
Right.
I was just remember reading about you, and like Basketball Digest would come out once a month. Mm-hmm. Sports Illustrated wrote about you sometimes.
Sport Magazine.
Yeah, and that was it. That was my connection to you. And then you actually came to Boston.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would have been possible for me to have higher expectations, but you went around the league that first year. Mm. What was that year like? First of all, the league was stacked because they only added 4 teams, but they basically added all the best ABA players. Every team was like an all-star team almost.
That's true. That year, we ended up with the best record in the league in Philadelphia.
Yep.
And I think it was maybe 50-plus wins. So we had home court advantage all the way through the playoffs, which was a feat in itself. In the East-West All-Star game, I was the most valuable player.
And you had a famous dunk. You dunked on Bill Walton's head.
I think I scored 30 points and had 12 rebounds, and, coach takes the starting lineup out. The West storms back, right. And they end up winning the game, but they had already voted for the MVP. And I was the MVP of the game, and I was on a losing team. So I go to accept the trophy, and I'm in Milwaukee for the first time. And the crowd is booing because they thought Rick Barry should have been the MVP because he led the comeback. And all I could think of saying was, I know this isn't the voted popular opinion, but I never won the All-Star Game MVP award in the ABA. So it really is an honor to win it, here in my first year in the NBA.
Yeah.
And then they kind of quieted down. They flipped them. They started applauding. And every time I went to Milwaukee, I always got great applause. And that's where I ended up playing my last NBA game, ironically.
Oh, yeah.
But that year, what you asked about, that was the year we, stormed through the playoffs, got to Portland, went up 2, and then lost 4 games in a row to Jack Ramsey. I always say, rather than Bill Walton and Maurice Lucas, Jack Ramsey was the key. He pushed all the right buttons. It was Jack's only championship. And so as I look back and reflect on that, as great a contributor as he's been to basketball, I think there would be a void without that championship. So I'm almost happy that he did win, and even though it was at my expense.
Well, it turned into the narrative from that finals turned out to be the selfish one-on-one Sixers against team basketball in Portland. And the irony was that you were a great team player. Especially on the Nets, the way you did it in 74 and 76 in those Nets teams was a lot like the way LeBron played now, where you're rebounding, you're setting up guys, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That Sixers team was a cast of characters, to say the least. Doug Collins, who I do TV with now on NBA Countdown, I always make him, anytime we're bored in the green room, basically, tell me a story.
Start talking about it, right?
Yeah, so
he's got 1,000.
Oh, he's got 1 million.
The motto, as Daryl Dawkins coined it in my documentary, whoever got it shot it.
Right.
But the interesting thing, we played our style the first 2 games at home and won handily, and we were winning the second game handily when the fight broke out with Maurice Lucas and Daryl Dawkins.
Doug still has the scar.
Yeah,
because Dawkins somehow hit Doug.
But Doug stepped in first to break it up, and then he got. And actually, it was Lucas and Doug, and then Daryl became the enforcer.
Yeah.
And he swung at Maurice and hit Doug, the guy he was supposed to be protecting. Right. So it was about time for me to take a seat at center court when all that happened. And I said, look, man, we're up like 15 points. This game is over. It's the fourth quarter.
Right.
Guys, not a good time to take one for the team. So it changed everything. I mean,
well, Doug said Dawkins locked everyone out of the locker room. He
tore up the locker room when he went in. He went in, he's like, nobody got my back. and he went in. He tore up a couple things in the locker room, and so he was upset. And we had center by committee because Caldwell Jones was usually the starter, and then Hawkins would come in, and then Harvey Catchings. So we had a stacked team talent wise. But I think we really lost focus as a team in terms of where we were and as a team of destiny. And that's all part of the whole fate thing with Jack Ramsey, getting his title. It's all tied together.
I don't know if the coaching was that great because if you watch the last play of that game, you're down 2, I think. You're down 1 or 2. You have the ball. Mm-hmm. And they used you as a decoy, and they ran a play for George McGinnis, who was like 10 for 230 in the series. I don't know if I agreed with that decision. I think if that happened in the internet era, it would have been very controversial that you didn't touch the ball. But, hey, as you said, sometimes it's not your year. You had your year in 83. Well, everything came together.
It did come together in 83. And even in the other runs to the finals, I mean, at least they were 6-game series, and and I think we had a good chance of winning, and we felt as though we lost to a better team. I think with that Portland team, I think they were a great team and a team of destiny. They're pound for pound and man for man. They were not a better team than the Sixers. So I think, you hate to say it, but Jack Ramsey probably did a better job than Gene Shue.
Yeah.
And I remember going into the huddle and waiting for the play, and I'm thinking, if we're going to set up a shooter, you got to set up Doug Collins. You got to get him on one of the baselines for an open shot. He had the best chance of making a shot. If it's a drive to the basket, it's me.
Yeah.
If it's a drive to the basket, it's George. World Be Free is on the court at the same time. So open shooter, he's a streak shooter, but the play, I think, should have been for Collins shooting or for me driving. He was then Lloyd free. He killed the Celtics in the 77 series before that, I remember. But then you also that was the same year. Yeah, that was the same year. They were defending champs of the NBA. The Nets were defending champs of the ABA. I was gone, so that first year, taking Boston to 7 games and. You were there. I mean, you were in front of a TV set somewhere.
Well, yeah, you won Game 7 in Philly. I was devastated.
In Philly, right? That was
We had some wars with you. And 81, the big comeback. We were down 3-1 in the series. Yeah. Barry somehow came back to win Game 5. Down 20 in Game 6 in Philly. Come back and win that. And then Game 7, to this day, is the best basketball game I've ever been to. Yeah. It was the refs.
You went to the game?
I was at that game. I was at all those games. And that was the only game I've been to, I've written about this, where the refs were just like, guys, you settle this. Guys are on the floor every play. There's 3 guys getting knocked down. It was like a rugby match. And I've just never seen a game like that. I don't think that game would happen again. There would have been about 20 flagrant fouls.
Well, it was a gut-wrenching game. And, in terms of all time, it probably was the toughest loss to take. I mean, even though we were on foreign turf, to have a 3-1 lead and then give it all away, that's gut-wrenching and heartbreaking. And even though it was made up for the next year because we had the same situation. We went up 3-1. They come back, it's 3-3, and then we go into Boston and we win Game 7.
Did the fans dressed as ghosts?
Yeah. They
walking behind your bench?
They had the Ghost of Celtics pass and the Beat LA chant.
Yeah. That was nice that we did that for you. We chanted Beat LA at the end. We respected you.
I got a little New England in me, too. I went to UMass, so there's always been a soft spot up there for the Celtics. I mean, Bill Russell's my role model and great friend.
He loves you.
And I love him. And, the fact that he was a Celtic who had to learn to hate, is irrelevant. So those games and the history and, when we talk about the book, we talk about first person giving my side of the story. So I do talk about 80 with the Lakers and 81, with the Celtics, 82, the series with Milwaukee Celtics, and 83 obviously culminating in the championship. But, the autobiography is not a basketball book. It's a book about my life and the lives of the people who were around me for 6 generations, 6 decades, the places we visited during those times, and the things that we did. Mm-hmm. So it's a full, full interpretation of what that was like decade by decade, starting with 1950, living in the housing projects in Hempstead, Long Island.
Yeah.
And going from there to where I'm at now, and really bringing it up to the date. We were probably covered right up to age 60. And I'm 63 now, so it took us 2 years to do the project.
One of the things that you didn't hit in the book as much as I thought you would, and maybe you weren't aware of it, but when I was researching my NBA book and researching your career and reading all the Sports Illustrated stories, stuff like that, in the late 70s, it seemed like you started to take some heat from the national media about what happened? This guy was supposed to be Superman coming in, and he's only scoring 22 points a game. His knee's hurt. There's this 3-year stretch where you were getting picked apart, and then all of a sudden that flipped when you took them to the 80 finals. But were you aware of that stuff as it was going on?
Oh, absolutely. When I went to Philly, and I had a very defined role in Virginia.
Yeah.
And I played behind Charlie Scott, who was the best player on the team.
Future Celtic.
And and then when he left for Phoenix, I had George Gervin coming behind me. So he deferred to me. And then when I left, it was his team. And I go to the Nets. Rick Barry leaves. It becomes my team.
I thought it was Super John Williamson's team.
No, he deferred to me. He deferred to me. We referred
Did
to
he
John.
know that?
Super John. Yeah, he knew it. But I come to Philly, and Pat Williams, who's a genius and a strategist, and clearly I'm sitting with Pat just like he's across the table, and he says, "Look, we don't need a guy scoring 30 points a night. We got a lot of guys here. We got a lot of talent. We got sensitive egos or whatever, and we're going to have a balanced offense, and everybody needs to play defense. That's how we're going to be successful." Mm-hmm. So I said, "What do you mean a balanced offense?" He said, "Well, you used to shooting the ball 25 times a game, 20 to 25 times. And it's going to be more like 15
right.
attempts from you, 15 from George, 15 from Doug, with 3 players." And
that doesn't make sense.
And we went through the season, and we had the best record. All 3 of us were all-stars. And so you talk about point shaving. Right. That was point shaving. I mean, it was with intent. And I averaged.
But you're in the prime of your career.
I averaged 22 points a game in Philly, and George averaged 21, and Doug averaged 20. So we really had balance, and we had, we were the big 3 at that time, and there was clearly conversations with Gene Shue involved, obviously, about not having a dominant player. That we had 3 guys, and we were going to be better, and because of the record, and because of the success on the road as well as at home, there was nothing to do but buy into it. I mean, I had the security of a great contract. And I've always been a team player anyway. So it wasn't that bitter a pill to swallow until we started to become criticized. And they said, well, you can't do it anymore. So after 3 years of, being one of the big three, I made up my mind. I said, well, I think they need more scoring from me.
Right.
And
they also traded for Bobby Jones with help.
No, Bobby Jones was my second year there.
Yeah.
George was out 5 games into the second season, and Bobby was here.
One of the great trades.
Bobby was there. Absolutely. But so from 76 to 81, after 4 years of, watching guys pass me who I'm better than in terms of all-pro and all-star recognition, in 81, I said, I have to be more of a selfish player. And in 81 is when I won, the NBA MVP award.
Right.
After multiple runner-ups.
Yeah.
I had runner-ups to Kareem and to, I think there was one other big man in there between 76 and 80. And when I won the MVP award in 81, it was the first time a non-center had won since Oscar Robertson won in 1965.
Yeah.
But clearly going over to the NBA from the ABA, my goals weren't individual goals, become, All-Star Game MVP, become league MVP, whatever. It was winning the championship. So in terms of talking with management, and particularly Pat Williams as a GM, Gene Shue, and then Billy Cunningham as coaches, what do we have to do to win the championship? That was our singular focus. So I think I made a lot of sacrifices in Philly, particularly the first 5 years. But
it feels like
it all came to roost, and we made the finals 4 times.
Right.
In that time too. So in 7 years from 76 to 83, we made the finals 4 times. We just lost 3 times.
It feels like I felt it when I read the book. I'm feeling it now. It does feel like you feel like you're a little bit underrated, like historically, like you don't totally get your due.
I think, I think it's true. I think it's true. And I don't say it as a grudge.
Yeah, or a bragging.
But I think the farther we move along and we become multiple generations removed from the playing days, the way things are reported, even when they had the lockout, there was a command from NBA headquarters. All right, we're going to show basketball footage, but we're not going to show anything prior to 1992.
Right.
Right. And when I heard about that, I was like, well, that people are going to watch basketball and a generation of followers are going to be affected by this. And why wouldn't they let them know about what happened prior to 1992?
Right.
Where did that come from? But so that's my bone to pick.
Well, that was the big reason why I wrote my book. Partly the inspiration of it was I was watching this game on ESPN Classic or Hardwood Classics, one of those. It was John Havlicek's last game. So at halftime, they do this ceremony, and the fans cheered for like 9 straight minutes.
Yeah.
Now think about how long 9 minutes is.
Awesome.
And Havlicek's a guy that you would never hear a conversation about him now. He's one of the 15, 16 best players ever. Yeah. The most durable guy. He won 8 titles, something like that. And he just kind of came and went, and he disappeared. And that's kind of the way the culture is now. And I think guys like you, Jordan has definitely struggled to deal with it. Like you can feel like he bristles when when LeBron gets compared to him now.
Before his time.
Yeah, he can.
And I have a 10-year rule.
Right.
I mean, the guys aren't even in the conversation until they play 10 years.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, don't put. I mean, Gale Sayers is the exception in football.
Right.
But in basketball, unless you play 10 years, you shouldn't even be in an all-time great conversation.
Do you think most people even realize that, like, the legacy goes basically Elgin Baylor, torch gets passed to you, you pass it to Jordan passes it to Kobe to LeBron, but in terms of, like, exciting guys who you could also
I would put Connie Hawkins in there. See, he's
you're right.
He's that Baylor, Hawkins.
Yeah. Although by the time he got to the league, was he
still? Why are you going to throw away all those years? The guy was great. You're throwing away his Globetrotter years. You're throwing away his ABA years. You're throwing away his Phoenix Suns years. And now he's a Laker at age 30, and he's got bad knees.
Did you ever play him when he had good knees?
Never played Honey, but we had a palming contest when we did the Fish that Saved Pittsburgh.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you talk about 9 minutes?
Yeah.
It took 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
It took 10 minutes. And I finally pulled the ball out of his hand.
Yeah.
And I said, uh-oh, what did I do? This is one of my heroes here. And I just beat him at something.
Wow.
So we sat there, we laughed. We laughed for 20 minutes, but we were like trying to pull the ball out, and we just couldn't do it. I mean, you probably don't know about this experience. You don't have big hands.
I don't have big hands.
But
you have some of the biggest hands I've ever seen.
A palming contest, I mean, that's like right up there.
When you talk about guys who kind of came and went, didn't get their just due, there was a couple David Thompson years in there.
David Thompson, man.
Did he jump the highest out of anybody ever on a court?
I would think that he and Dominique and Vince.
Those are your three?
They're kind of in a class by themselves in terms of leaping.
Right.
And making the leaps very interesting because they could finish. I mean, each could finish in his own way. But
all right, so
when you like, if I was going to get posterized by somebody, I could accept getting posterized by one of those three guys. Other guys, I'd be a little upset because I'm a shot blocker.
Who dunked on you? Who was the craziest dunk on you?
When I ended my career, I was in the top 10 in block shots.
Yeah,
I was number 2 in steals. I was number 1 in steals.
Yeah,
count ABA and NBA. I'm number 1 in steals, number 3 in scoring. Did you know that?
I know all about your career.
You didn't know that.
What are you talking about?
You didn't know that.
You were second in minutes too, at one point.
I don't know about minutes. I didn't care about the minutes.
Well, the minutes are impressive.
Yeah, give me more minutes. Right? But so as a shot blocker, you're going to get dunked on.
Right.
Yeah. So I got dunked on by a lot of people.
What was the worst one?
But I blocked a lot of shots.
What was the worst dunk on you?
That I can remember. I think I've purged it from my memory. There probably maybe Olajuwon. I think Olajuwon caught me one.
Young Olajuwon.
Yeah, I think he caught me one time. I actually blocked his shot, and they called a foul, but he knew it was a clean block. So the next time he came with a little more,
you gave Bar a
little Moses Malone, better coming in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to get out the way.
What was the best dunk you ever had on somebody?
Clearly, Elvin Hayes.
Elvin Hayes. Everybody hated Elvin Hayes.
Elvin Hayes, man. It was Elvin and West under there, so I turned the corner on the forward who was guarding me. And there's Elvin and West. They're waiting. And Elvin jumped. West never jumped. Elvin jumped, and, he used to always jump with two hands.
Right.
He jumped with two hands, and I kind of put it right in the middle, and the air got taken out of the Landover building at that time because everybody was.
But people would root for you, though, in that situation, though, right? You would flip
no bragging about it. Just kind of ran down the court because I knew, Elvin was one of those guys who was going to try to get you back.
Right.
And he never got me back.
Well, you would.
But he was mad for about 5 years because, it was funny. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's all right.
But we go to, in 95, 96, the 50 greatest.
Right.
Elvin is still mad. We're like both retired. And I said with him, Wilt, and Moses, and we're all going to dinner.
Yeah.
Basically, so we're all in the same seating area. And Elvin is there. I could tell he's mad about something. And I had pretty much forgotten about it,
Right.
And I'm like, hey, how you doing? And then it hit me. He was like holding on to that.
Wow.
Hey, you got to let it go, man. You got to let it go. We're here 50 greatest players of all time. We need to be boys.
Right.
He said, yeah, you're right. So he held on to it because it happened in the early 80s, and this was the middle 90s. So he held on to it for a while.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize, because now everybody dunks. You can go on YouTube and watch 25 guys playing above the rim.
Yeah.
But when you were doing it, it was basically just you and 2 other guys. And this was the entire mid-'70s because it was a pretty grounded, slow game for the most part. And the ABA, which, unfortunately there just wasn't on TV enough, was a much more fun league. It was wide open, up and down. The NBA was more slow down. You had Kareem with the sky hook and half-court offense. Your product was a lot more fun, and yet nobody could see it really. And you have all these dunks that just weren't captured by cameras, which is kind of a tragedy. Basketball tragedy.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are highlight reels out there, and I think you I think the number of players who were dunking certainly was more than a handful. I mean, every team had somebody who could throw it down, and right on through the roster, guys who could throw down. Now throwing down in a game, I think it was a novelty for a while, but I started in 71. So from 71 to 87, I think you're going to have a collection of ABA and NBA, some of the best dunkers of all time. I mean, you take a Sean Kemp.
Yeah.
And you even take Kenny Smith. I mean, with the slam dunk contest, when the slam dunk contest came into play, Larry Nance, who was a winner, East Bay Funk, what was his name? J.R. Reed.
Terrence Stansbury, the Statue of Liberty.
Stansbury. I mean, so this was in the dunk contest, and each team, that was a representative for the team.
Yeah.
But each team had, multiple guys, who would dunk the ball with frequency. I don't think you had the running of the highlights and the plays of the week, dunks of the week, things like that became theme items after ESPN was created, which was after my career was over.
Well, you missed YouTube was even the bigger one.
And yeah, right. People posting stuff that they saw on YouTube. So now
literally
you have
after
high school, junior high school.
Yeah.
You have eighth graders putting on dunk shows, male and female, and posting it on YouTube. So the whole world gets to see it. But I think a part of not having that exposure adds to the mystique.
I agree.
Associated with my career and several others. And so the book gives us an opportunity to, once again, first person, say what we were thinking, what we were doing, and hope that, that gets incorporated in the story, which is the real story.
Yeah. The mystique, not necessarily totally a bad thing. So I remember
mystique is not a bad thing, and it kind of plays also into, the privacy of the period, because, people didn't put their lives on blast. So there was a privacy element. And I've never been the type of guy who just wants to see my name, face, and likeness plastered over everything, So I've had more endorsement opportunities that I've turned down than I've accepted because they, just didn't fit what I believed or who I thought I was or products that I didn't want to promote.
So let's say I build a time machine and I could take 1976 Doc in a dunk contest, and I could pick 3 other guys for you to dunk against from any year. Who would be the 3 people that had the best chance to beat you? By the way, I'd say they all have a chance of winning. It depends on what the format is. The format that I want in, if you miss, you're out. Yep. So when I came over to the NBA and I missed a dunk, that's how Larry Nance beat me. I clearly was out dunking him before that. Yeah.
And then try to do something I'd never done before because of all the coaching I was getting from my kids who were the ball boys and ended up, missing a dunk.
So who would be the 3 that you feared?
Oh, let's see.
Dominique would be on there, right?
Well, I would have Dominique and Michael. They're head-to-head.
Yeah.
And they had those head-to-head competitions, so they were awesome. Vince would have to be in the argument.
Yeah, Vince has kind of lost his
sanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, Vince is, he's one of the old guys now.
Yeah.
But in his prime, so if you had me in my prime, and you got Vince in his prime, Michael in his prime, you got Dominique in his prime. And
that's a good Final Four.
Yeah.
David Thompson.
Yeah, other guys, and the 10-year rule. You You got to get some guys in who, after they get 10 years in, so you'd have, KD and LeBron and others. But
what about?
You said 4, so I think we got 4.
Jordan had that thing about his ultimate pickup team, where he said the 5 guys he'd take that could just beat anybody. And I think it was him and James Worthy and Magic and maybe Hakeem and some other person. So in a pickup game, who would you take? What 4 teammates would you take?
Okay. Well, I start with Moses Malone.
Because you played with him and you know firsthand.
Well, I know that in a pickup game, Moses would beat the crap out of any center. Maybe Wilt would have a chance.
Right.
But in terms of man in the paint, nobody's going to man the paint like him. I could take Barkley. So he's my power forward.
You get every offensive rebound.
And then I need a guard. And then I need a guard. I'm on the team.
Yeah.
So right, and let's say so me, Moses, Charles.
When Moses,
I'd probably let Cheeks run the show. All Philly guys.
Well, you're taking 83 Sixers.
We should have.
You might as well take Tony at this point.
We didn't have Barkley. We didn't have Barkley in 83.
We need the 83 Sixers with Barkley over Iverson.
We didn't have Barkley in 83. I'm taking my guys. It's a pickup game.
Well, you don't have to sell me on Andrew Toney in a pickup game.
Well,
we had to trade
was
DJ.
it 5?
Yeah, that's.
Oh, well, Tony's the last guy. Yeah, we'll take that guys.
Tony's one of the great lost careers.
Yeah.
Collins
and Tony, they parallel one another a lot. And sadly, it's, it was the Philly fans, it's at the Philly fans' expense that these guys didn't have full careers and 12 to 15-year careers, because they clearly would be Hall of Famers, and Doug's in the Hall of Fame as coach. But they were clearly en route, and their injuries were so similar in terms of the foot injuries that in a place that really doesn't heal.
Right.
And probably even troubled by it today. But they've made do, and they've made amends. I played golf with Tony, usually once a month down in Atlanta. I don't get to see Doug that much anymore, but he's on the scene. He's still in the public eye.
Yeah.
So,
what about
It can be a bitter pill sometimes, in terms of what you want versus what you get.
Right.
But you always have to accept what you get, and each has made do with it.
What about just a team?
My all-time team?
5 guys in a 6-man.
I got a lot of people who always get mad at me when I pick my team because.
Does that mean you're copping out?
No, I'm not copping out.
Okay.
I got my team.
All right, I want to hear your team.
I've had my team since I was 15.
15?
So that eliminates a lot of people.
I like it.
Already.
I like it.
Okay? You got Wilt.
Yeah.
You got Russell. You got Baylor. You got West. And you got Oscar Robertson. That's it.
Wow, you went super old school.
Put those guys on the court against anybody, they would win. That's my team.
No Magic Johnson.
And that's always going to be my team.
No Magic Johnson?
Magic, Michael, Bird, love what they did for the game, love their talent, their blessed ability. But my all-time team, I picked my all-time team a long time ago. I'm one of those guys. I'm really old school in that I don't change.
Right.
And I just can't. Nobody moves in on that team right there. That's my team. That's been my team for years.
So you think Wilt and Russell could have played together?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, like Russ says, Wilt would have to play power forward. Just ask him.
Who do you think out of the guys from your generation, do you think Moses was probably the most underrated?
No, Moses is the most underrated because, Kareem is the greatest. In terms of centers all time, Kareem is the number one guy. In terms of players all time, Kareem is still the number one guy. He's the guy you got to start your franchise with.
Because you get 20 years.
You get 20 years and you get leadership, you get excellence in terms of offensively and defensively and figuring things out and accomplishment. His numbers speak volumes. And just because he had a bad attitude, there are a lot of people who disrespect him, but he never had a bad attitude with me. And, I met him back in 1970, and I don't think there's ever been a more potent weapon to step on a basketball court than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
And whether it's Lou Alcindor or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you're talking about disrespected, underrated, left out of conversations. I sat with the round table over at TNT once, and Kareem wasn't in the conversation, and they were talking about centers. I'm like, are you for real? How can you do that?
He can't be lower than third all the time. He just can't. Plus, how many MVPs did he win? 7? And he won 5 titles, or maybe won more than that. He might have won 6 titles. Yeah, the record speaks for itself.
Yeah,
I hate the Lakers, so it's tough for me to admit, but Kareem, you can't deny the stats. You can't deny the numbers.
See, stats sometimes don't tell the whole story.
That's true. I'm just saying the resume.
But when you have the stats and you have the story.
And the title.
Come on.
Yeah.
Why be a hater?
Right.
And I find myself in that position also where I have the story and the mystique, but then when you compile the stats for 16 years, you can put them up against anybody's.
Well, you played 16 years, which is like playing 40 now. You're flying coach.
Guys are actually playing longer. Look at Steve Nash. He's still out there. Kobe's 37.
Yeah, but you were flying coach. You didn't have arthroscopic surgery back then.
Oh, you're talking about from a physical standpoint?
Yeah. The 16 years back in your day was 25 now. Nobody played 16 years.
Especially with the canvas Converse on, right?
You had bad sneakers, right? You didn't have any of those contraptions. You didn't have sleeves on your legs.
I think you got to be a machine. You had
to carry on suitcases?
You had to be a machine back in the day. No, I made Barkley carry my suitcase.
Okay. Barkley said you were
my rookie. Iceman was my rookie in Virginia.
Yeah.
Right. Tony was my rookie in Philly first. Then Barkley when he came in.
Some good valets.
Whatever. So, yeah, I had some good valets.
Barkley said you were probably the single most important thing that ever happened to him because you gave him the speech when he was a rookie about acting like a professional.
With Moses and myself, I think he really looked up to us because we were already established.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of yes, sir, no, sir, whatever. It quickly changed from get out my way.
Right.
Move, bitch, get out the way. But, he does recall and recount those years that we played together, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
we had a lot of fun, and watching him develop and watching him become a dominant force was a joy because God knows Philly needed it, and everybody has their time. So suddenly I'm 34. I'm 34 when he gets there. 5, 6, 7. I played 3 years, 35, 36, 37. Still an all-star, still obviously relevant as a player, but time would take its toll. And, sometimes your mind runs ahead of your body. So, so it was a joy to watch. And I kind of think about Kobe now in terms of deferring to someone else on the team because of, his age and the number of years and the miles that he's logged. And the next couple of years, he signed for the next couple of years. They need to be a little different than the previous 2 years. It can't be the same. And he's going to figure that out or find that out.
I always admired how when you walked away when you did, because you could have played 2 more years. Yeah. You could have fallen back a little bit, maybe been a 6-man, something like that. You were still good when you left.
Yeah.
I think you still had 20 your last season, right?
My last game, it was more like 16, 18.
Yeah, something like that.
But in my last game, it was 24 points and
you could still
dozen rebounds. So I could still play. You could still turn it on when need be. And it was always needed with that particular team because the team got into the playoffs, and we went 5 games with Milwaukee before getting knocked out. But it was time, and I really thought that. Bill, I had a what I call a side door entrance into pro basketball because I left school.
Yeah.
After my junior year, I signed a contract with the Virginia Squires in a motel room in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia airport. And that was a side door entrance. Got a $10,000 advance instead of a signing bonus. And I agreed to play, 4 years for $500,000. So the side door entrance needed to have a front door exit. So I decided in my 16th season, this would be Sweet 16. This would be my last year walking away from basketball, not looking back. I'm going to give it everything I have. I'm going to leave it on the court this last year. And that's it. And we had a great farewell tour because of that announcement, a farewell tour like they've never had in the NBA prior to or post.
You got a lot of gifts.
And I got a lot of gifts, a lot of recognitions, gave a lot of short speeches.
Yeah.
And because I ended up breaking my finger and was out for 20 games, most I've ever missed in a season,
wow.
I got a chance to sit in and embellish and enjoy. So I would still go on the road trip even though I was in street clothes. And it was a front door exit. So that exit from that chapter of my life, that phase of my life, was very important to have, and it was orchestrated very well.
What's your best Moses Malone story?
Welcome to Philly. It was like Moses comes to Philly, and he's been in Houston, and of course he was the man, and now he's on stage with me and the Sixers. We're a little better team than he had in Houston, so there was a little deferring to be done. But the fans in Philadelphia, he comes to practice, and he's got this convertible, and he drives over to St. Joe's University where we practice, and he leaves I don't think he left the top down, but he left the doors open, and he had dry cleaning in there. So when he comes out after practice, he's like, "Oh man, where's my?" And some of the Philly fans just said, "Welcome to Philly." They broke it into his car.
Oh,
took his dry cleaning, and he said, "When I see people walking around Philly with my big collar shirts, I'm gonna recognize my stuff." Because he had, the Texas with the big collars,
right?
Whatever, and he had maybe like 4 or 5 of them or whatever. He was looking for his stuff for days. I'm like, Mo, it's gone, man. It's gone. Just forget about it. You got to concentrate on basketball. Welcome to Philly. You got to lock your car up.
That's great. He was a beast that first year. It seemed like he was the one guy that Kareem just couldn't figure out.
No,
he was like just too physical and everything.
You need to have Moses in here talking to him one day because
it's one of my dream podcasts.
He says, look. I'm never going to let Kareem out-rebound me, one. And most times, he's never going to outplay me. So Moses had so much reverence and so much respect for Kareem.
Yeah.
He was always singularly focused when he played Kareem because he knew that Kareem was the guy. And he would always be measured. And in terms of centers of all time, he can't play against Wilt. He can't play against Russell. He can play against Shaq, to a degree when he's older. But Kareem was the guy. So he always had that extra gear then. And it showed up in that playoffs, when we swept them that night after night. I mean, he just beat the crap out of him. It was relentless. I mean, I looked at the stat line one night, and he had like 24 points and 24 boards and whatever. And I didn't see the boards. Right. But Kareem did. Kareem had 24 bruises. Right. So it was like 24. He had a triple-double, 24, 24, 24.
So speaking of Kareem, you're in Fish That Saves Pittsburgh, one of the iconic 70s basketball movies. You played Moses Guthrie.
Yeah.
You go on a date and you dunk for your date, which is one of my favorite movie scenes.
The whole montage.
Yeah, I mean, you were
in street shoes.
In street shoes.
Right, with the sweater on, the street clothes.
You're in every scene. Yeah. So you obviously filmed this the previous summer, and you're playing NBA players in these games.
Right.
In the climactic game, you play the Lakers, and Kareem's on the Lakers.
Yeah.
But then he disappears midway through the game, and he's never seen again. And there's been all kinds of rumors about what happened. Do you know the actual story? Because I don't know if anybody knows the story.
Connie Hawkins had to move over and play center. We had Norman Nixon.
So was it like a money
bunch
thing?
Of guys. No.
Did he have a schedule conflict?
Well, on the set that day, and they won't mind me talking about it.
No. It's 35 years ago.
Yeah, he got pissed about something, right, with Gilbert Moses, who's the director.
Okay.
And he got pissed, maybe the way something was getting set up. So he takes the director's chair and he slams it on the court. He slams it and he walks out.
And he's gone?
And he's gone. And literally he was gone. He walked out. And it was, the show must go on, right? So it's like, well, how's the show go on? We don't have Kareem. Nobody's protecting the basket. So Connie said, I'll play center. So he comes over and he plays center. And we just went on. But he used to get those migraines.
Right.
So I'm going to give him a mulligan. I'm going to say the migraine kicked in and something upset him. And he bailed out. But he slammed the chair before he went out. I remember it like it was yesterday.
All right.
And, we laughed, but, it wasn't funny to him. He was mad about something.
Last thing.
I think he's gotten over it.
Well, speaking of getting over the last thing, I've gotten over, you and Bird had a fight. I was at the game.
Really?
I was there. And
you call that a fight?
It was right in front of me.
You call that a fight?
You got in a punch. His arms are getting held back.
You call that a fight?
First of all,
do you call that a fight? Really?
A punch landed?
Oh, it was like 3 jabs.
He gave him a couple
of jabs.
Can I just tell you that
for the team, taking one for the team.
Watching you guys fight was probably the most startling moment of my life, because you had a great rivalry, but there was a reverence with you guys, between you guys, a respect. Something happens in that game. He's playing well. He starts talking.
Yeah.
There's one of the refs.
Well, he started it. You knew he started it.
I was there. I saw. He started it. There's only one ref, not 2.
We should leave it right there. He started it. I finished it.
You had Moses and Barkley holding his arms.
They came over. They didn't come over that fast, but they got there.
But you guys were business partners. You were in a computer game, though. You were in the famous Bird versus Dr. J game.
First one-on-one basketball game for EA Sports. We did that, and we actually sat, in the same room and gave guidance to the technicians,
right,
in terms of what the player movement should be like. So he was raining threes and I was going in dunking the ball, and it's funny because people we got an audience of people who would either be him or me.
Right.
There was nobody who would be both. It was like one or the other. It was like a division right there, and it's like the Mason-Dixon line. Right. It was like, well, I'm going to be Bird and I'm going to be Doc, and people would come up and they would say things to me, and I'm sure they were doing the same thing to him. And then we kind of both agreed, since we were doing Converse together, we were doing Spalding together, we did electronic arts together, that we would never dignify the photograph of us holding one another's throats.
Right.
And just Tuesday, I did a autograph signing in Long Island, and the guy is standing there, and he's got the photo in the envelope. And he's like, you're probably not going to sign this, but he kind of starts sliding it out. I was like, put it back. Put it back.
Wow.
I don't sign the photograph.
So you guys agreed never to sign that photo?
Yeah, pretty much.
Did that affect your relationship, or everything was fine?
The next game we shook hands, and
that was it?
We're cool, yeah.
All right.
We're cool.
Then I'm cool. If the legend's cool with you, then I'm cool.
No, we're cool.
Julius Erving.
You wore your green shirt, too.
Yeah,
you had a green sweater.
I had to represent. The book is called Dr. J, the Autobiography. And if you haven't seen the excellent documentary, which came out last summer, congratulations on that. Good luck with the book. Good luck with everything. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at PodCenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
Gotta say, Gola, great call on grabbing Subway for lunch and getting guacamole on our subs.
Told you this new guac really amps up the flavor.
Yep, something adding up things can be great. Guacamole on your sub, a new co-host to replace you.
What was that?
Oh, no, nothing.
Subway now has deliciously rich new guacamole made from ripe Hass avocados with just a hint of garlic, onion, and jalapeno. Discover how new guacamole turns up the flavor on any of your freshly made favorites. Subway, eat fresh.